Greetings, my beautiful lovelies. It's Emmy. How are you? It's great to see you and welcome back. Today, I'm going to be making a pizza with a fabulous name. It's called Upside Down Grandma Pizza. So intriguing. What a wonderful name. Today, we're going to be making a pizza that looks pretty straightforward and pretty simple, has a great name. It's called the Grandma Upside Down Pizza because it's upside down. I'm not sure where the grandma part comes from, maybe just to make the recipe sound interesting. It certainly got me. But we're going to be making a pan style pizza, a thin pan style pizza, meaning we're going to be baking it on a pan, stretching the dough out, but putting the toppings on in reverse order. We're going to put the cheese on first, then the tomatoes, or in this case, crushed whole tomatoes, seasoning it a bit, adding a little bit more cheese, and that's it. Super simple, super easy, no crazy toppings, simply sauce and cheese. But sometimes, most often, the best recipes are the simplest. So let's go ahead and make it. So from my understanding, this style of pizza, Grandma Upside Down Pizza, this thin pan pizza, comes from a very specific part of New York. It comes from Long Island, more specifically Nassau County, and Umberto's is credited for originating this style of pizza, or maybe not the style, but the name. This is similar to a Sicilian style pan pizza, but from my understanding, the Sicilian's a little bit deeper, a little bit more like a Detroit style pan pizza. This is thinner and it's going to be bigger. But the recipe I'm going to be adapting today comes from Snip and Feast. So let's go ahead and make the dough because there is some preparation. From my research, I've learned that you can use the dough after you've let it rest for 4 hours, 12 hours, but it's recommended that it sit in the refrigerator for much longer, 12, 24, even 36 hours. It develops a lot of flavor and gluten develops as well, and the dough will be a lot more stretchable the longer it sits. But more importantly, it's going to taste better as well. So I've already pre-measured my flour. I like to weigh my recipes if at all possible, but I know a lot of people don't have scales. So this is about 3.5 cups of bread flour. And to that, we're going to add some instant yeast, salt, and a little sugar. Mix that together for a little preliminary whisking. Now we're going to add some water, 9 ounces, so just a little over a cup. And again, I'm doing this by weight. I find using a scale is really easy, but more importantly, it's super accurate, especially when you are measuring things like flour, and it can be so dependent on volume, and sometimes you overpack it, or sometimes it's too light. So you can't beat the accuracy of a scale, in my opinion. 9 ounces. Okay, now we're gonna add some olive oil, just a tablespoon. That'll make the dough nice and supple. Now we are simply going to mix this into a dough. I'm using a bread whisk or a Danish whisk. I've mentioned this tool a lot because I use it quite a lot more than I would have expected. So the great big holes make it really great for mixing thick batters or doughs. So get all of that mixed in as best we can. And initially it's going to be shaggy. And so when we get most of it mixed in, we can go in with our hands and start kneading this to work in all of the flour. And the flour needs to absorb all of that moisture, that water and oil that we added. And we're going to knead this for about 5 minutes or until the dough is smooth. See, right now it's really shaggy and doesn't really have any shape yet. Once you start kneading it, you'll start to feel it gain some structure, and that's the gluten forming. It's kind of a marvelous thing because initially your dough is going to be very sticky and then it won't be. So don't be tempted to add more flour to this because that'll change the hydration of, or the proportions of water to flour in your dough. And you don't want that. You want it to have what the recipe designer intended, right? So it's sticky. See how it's sticking to my hands? But the more we work it, the less sticky it will be. Sometimes you can do this if you like. It's a way to keep it from being sticky, and it's kind of fun. It's a nice way to kind of get your aggressions or frustrations out. But already it's getting some structure. See how it's already smoothing out? So after we knead it, we're going to form it into a ball. We want the dough ball to have a nice tight skin to it. So we're going to form it into a ball tuck all the sides underneath it. This nice and tight around the edges. Tuck it around so that the ball is smooth. See that? Look how much smoother that is. So now we're going to take a bowl, add some olive oil to your bowl. I'm going to use the same bowl that we used to mix the dough, because why bother dirtying up another bowl? Plop it in there, spin the top of it, turn it over so that the dough doesn't dry out, and get the bottom of the dough ball as well. So now we're going to wrap this in plastic wrap and place it in the refrigerator and allow this to rest. At least for 12 is best, 24 even better, so that the dough can have time to rest, rehydrate, and most importantly, develop lots of flavor. Alrighty, let me wash my hands. So here's the dough that I made earlier that's been resting in the refrigerator. And when you're ready to make your pizza, you take the dough out and allow it to sit at room temperature for a couple of hours. Now we're going to take a rimmed sheet pan. Traditionally, this is done with a steel pan that usually has a dark finish. I've been told that a half sheet pan, rimmed baking pan like this, will work fine, although it has a reflective surface as opposed to that dark finish. So what I'm going to do, what's instructed in the recipe, is that I'm going to bake this on a preheated steel that I've got in my oven heating right now. So my oven's preheating at 450 degrees, so everything is nice and piping hot, including the baking steel. So when I place this pan on top of it, it'll immediately get hot. So that'll ensure, hopefully, a nice crisp crust. So into my baking sheet, I'm going to add a liberal amount of olive oil. That's going to help with sticking, but more importantly, browning and toasting, and maybe more importantly is flavor too. It's going to add a ton of great flavor to the dough. So here is our rested dough. It hasn't risen much, but it looks very cute. We're going to dump this out. Okay, and now we're going to coax this dough to fit this pan. Now this might take a little bit of time because we've just greased it, but also because the gluten wants to stretch back a bit. But this long resting time allows the gluten to form, and it window panes very nicely, which is this kind of thinning effect that happens. And that happens when there's lots of gluten developed, and so thin that light passes through like a window pane. So I'm going to stretch it as best I can, allow it to rest, and then while it's resting, we can prepare some of the toppings. Okay, so we're pretty much there, and I'm just going to let it chill while we prepare our toppings. Chill meaning chill out, not chill and place in the refrigerator. So instead of a sauce, which you can use, for this recipe you can use your favorite marinara sauce, or you can do what I'm going to do and use whole San Marzano tomatoes that we're going to crush by hand. Just dump that into here. We're going to reserve this sauce. We're not going to use it for the recipe. Reserve it, make some pasta, make some sauce, and we're just going to strain out the sauce and use the whole tomatoes. And we're just going to crush these tomatoes up, and that's going to be our sauce topping. Try not to get tomato juice everywhere, but good luck with that. I don't think that's gonna be possible. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna have to mop. So just crushing them into this bowl, and then we will use that for our topping. Okay, so there it is, hand crushed tomatoes. Next, we're going to make our garlic oil. And this is a little bit of minced garlic. This is about 3 cloves that I've minced. I've been mincing huge batches of garlic and then putting them into a zippered bag, a Ziploc bag, mashing it nice and thin, and then scoring it so you get little pucks, and freezing it and then snapping it after it's frozen so you get these little pre-minced garlic bits. It's been great. I really like the process because then I have just already minced garlic at hand. I mean, I have a mincer, one of these little hand garlic presses, which I use a lot, but somehow it's just great to be able to go to the freezer and just get a little block of prepped garlic. It's been nice. So I just let it sit in the saucer here, and it's already thawed, and I'm adding about 2 tablespoons of think a little more. We're gonna make about 3 tablespoons of fresh garlic oil. So just press the garlic into the oil, and we're going to use that to drizzle onto our pizza. That's gonna be delicious. So, garlic oil prepped, tomatoes prepped. Lastly, I've got some fresh mozzarella cheese that I have sliced, and I left my cheese slicer in the other kitchen, so I just used my vegetable peeler and it worked famously. So this is just a block of fresh mozzarella cheese, and I'm just slicing it with my veggie peeler. It works great, look at that. Whoops, now it's not going to. So the colder your cheese, the easier it will be to slice, but this is working pretty well. And you need about 12 to 16 ounces. So that's almost an entire block of cheese. So that's all prepped. Let's check on our dough. And now that it's rested just a few minutes already, it's behaving a little bit more. All this oil and the kind of suppleness of the dough reminds me of focaccia, which is really fun to make because you get to squish dough with oil. Okay, so this is an upside down grandma pizza. So let's begin with putting down our cheese. Mozzarella first, instead of on top. Putting an even layer of this, kind of just shingling it on, making sure that every spot is covered with cheese. And I, like most bloggers and food people, agree that shredding your own cheese is best because it's more flavorful. It just is. You don't get the kind of dusty stuff that they put on there to keep the cheese from clumping. So I think this is going to be just the right amount of cheese. Since I went to all the effort of slicing all this cheese, I'm going to go ahead and add as much of it on here as possible. Okay, so we've got pretty much every square bit covered with a layer of cheese. All right, one more kind of nudge into the corners. Now we're going to take our crushed tomatoes and add them in little bits all over the pizza, but not to cover. You still want some of that cheese to show through. So kind of like little patches. Also, if you don't have crushed tomatoes, you can also use marinara sauce that you just kind of blob on here, right? But it is important not to do it so that it's entirely covered with sauce. That looks great. Great. Next, we're going to take our garlic oil and drizzle this all over. You can use as little or as much as you like. And I'm going to use all of it because I like garlic. Okay, this beautiful thing now goes into a preheated 450-degree oven and bakes for 12 minutes. Halfway, we rotate the pizza, and then for the last 6 minutes, we bring it to the top rack so it can kind of get nice and broiled on top. So a total of 18 minutes cooking time for this entire pizza. And then we're going to transfer it onto a rack to cool just for a minute, and then we're going to cut it and we're going to give this upside down grandma pizza a taste. All right, my lovelies, I will see you in about 20 minutes. All right, my lovelies, here is the baked upside down grandma pizza, and it looks fantastic. Now, the recipe said to move this up in your oven. I didn't have to. I actually baked it right in the middle on my steel, and it browned up beautifully. It's supposed to have this nice caramelized cheesy topping, and I did not have to move it, although I did find the crust not to be as crispy, so I put the entire sheet pan on my little mobile burner here just to kind of crisp it up a little bit. And then I transferred it onto a rack so that we have some air circulation, and hopefully it will prevent it from getting soggy. Now we're going to take some oregano and sprinkle it on top. Oh my gosh, it smells great. Just a bit, and that will give us kind of the quintessential pizza flavoring, at least in my opinion. Something about that oregano, the combination of oregano, garlic, sauce, says pizza. Ah, and it looks great too. Now we're going to grate some additional cheese on top. Traditional would be pecorino romano, but I've got parm, so that's what I'm using. Oh, this looks so great. So great. The cheese is just kind of melting as it touches the hot pizza. Adds a little extra saltiness, funky flavor. Yum. This looks so good. Woo! Look at that. So fantastic. Alrighty, let's have a slice. So I'm going to cut it with scissors. I know some people do not like kitchen shears in the kitchen. I'm not one of those people. And I also love cutting pizza with scissors. Just very convenient. Okay. And this is served in squares. Okay, so I toasted it on my burner so that the crust could get crusty. Yes. That's the top. Look at that. Looks great. Alrighty, my first taste of upside down grandma pizza. Itadakimasu. Whew. That's so good. First off, that crust is delicious. It's a pan style pizza crust, so it's a little bit thicker than what you would get, say, delivered to your house. It's more bready, more focaccia like. Bready, but tasty and fluffy, and all of that olive oil makes it so flavorful and crispy and crunchy at the bottom. Look at that. I really appreciate the simplicity. It works beautifully. The tomatoes that we added on here are tart and tangy and taste tomatoey. There's a perfect amount of seasoning. It's not overly salty. The cheese has plenty of salt in it, and it tastes dairied and not overly complex. The mozzarella adds a nice dairied, milky flavor, a little bit of a stretch, but also because it broiled up on top like this, it got nice and toasty and brown. There's a nice nutty baked cheese flavor to it. But I think what I love most is that garlic oil. So flavorful. And I'm really enjoying this style of pizza crust. You get that really great pan crust quality of having a simultaneously crisp experience while having a nice kind of fluffy bread experience without it tasting stodgy or feeling stodgy or doughy or not being flavorful. None of that. You get a really flavorful crust. I also think that the oregano is pretty important here. It just makes it taste pizza-y to me. Also, I wouldn't skip on that extra layer of cheese on top. If you're using Parmesan or Pecorino, it adds another bit of saltiness, another layer of saltiness, and kind of a nice funky cheesy flavor on top. But great, great pizza. And I'm sure my kids are gonna love it. The eggs are so good. Alrighty, my lovelies, there you have it. Upside down grandma pizza. Totally recommend this one. Absolutely delicious. My one thing is just to make sure your crust is crispy. If it's not crispy, take your entire pan and put it on your burner, on your stove, and just get a little bit toasty on the bottom. You'll see the cheese kind of bubble up. Be careful not to burn your pizza, but you definitely want it crispy. I feel like that's a huge part of making this pizza, having that wonderful texture of fluffy, bready dough in the middle and then crisp crust on the bottom. But all ovens are different. Your oven may crisp your bottom of your pizza beautifully. I cooked mine on a baking steel. That could have made a difference. If you're not using a baking steel, maybe it'll just crisp up beautifully without having to do any additional toasting. But that's what cooking's about, making your own decisions for your own situation. Alrighty, my lovelies, thanks as always for watching. I hope you enjoyed that one. I hope you learned something. Please share this video with your friends. Follow me on social media. Like this video. Check out the Detroit style pizza. That one's phenomenal too. And I shall see you in my next one. Toodaloo. Take care. Bye. Yes, dinner time. Here we go.